everybody. Welcome to Player 2 Press Start. I am killagreg. You can find me at killagreg17. I am giving a little bit of an intro here because this week we are doing something a bit different. So I had a family emergency this week, so Dan and I were unable to record, but we still wanted to put something up for you. So we are going to give you a little bit of our Halo retrospective. This is something that he and I had recorded a few months before we did the Dead Space podcast. And at that time, we had a little bit of a different vision for the show. And we recorded this. The whole Halo retrospective is about 6 hours long. And it became a bit of an undertaking. So we scrapped that, refocused the show, and then put out what you guys know. But there's still some quality audio here, so we thought, since we don't have a new podcast up for you this week, we wanted to put something out. I would edit this, and we'd throw this up for you. Be gentle with it. It's a little rough, but I still think it's pretty good. So follow me at killagreg17. Follow Dan BogroD. You can follow the podcast Twitter at PLAYRTWO. Like us on Facebook, Player 2 Press Start, and check out the website, player2pressstart.com. So here it is, part 1 of our Halo retrospective. Enjoy.
So we're going to jump into our main topic for this episode, our first episode. You could consider this our pilot.
Yes, our pilot. And for our pilot, this is slightly different than I envision the rest of our episodes going, but I think it's a good jumping off point for our own perspectives on certain things.
So, as we mentioned, the co-op experience is what this podcast revolves around. And one of my earliest and most enjoyable co-op experiences has been with the Halo series, both with the campaign and the multiplayer. So Halo is our story of the day.
Yeah, all of them. We're going big or going home.
This is sort of like a co-op analysis, but a retrospective and just
a co-op respective.
Yeah,
I'm coining it.
Yep, that's been trademarked
by us.
So we're going to start off. We're just going to start off at the beginning, and we're going to work our way forward, and we'll see how far we get. We might end up having to split this into 2 episodes, but so we're going to start with Halo Combat Evolved / Halo Anniversary.
Cue the Halo music. We gotta get that music in here because honestly, like, no, that's getting cut. We're cutting the shit out of that. You're ruining the podcast. We're 20 minutes in, it's ruined. I know, I have professionals for that.
So wait, are we gonna play some Breaking Benjamin on here?
No, that's Halo 2, dude. It's like you are not showing yourself to be an expert here. People are tuning off radios as we speak.
They're listening to this on their hi-fi.
I listen. Yeah, they are.
All right, Halo 1.
All
right, so why don't you... Greg and I have taken notes, some general topics to sort of hit here, so why don't you kick it off, Greg?
All right. We just played that music cue, but I think that's actually really important because, first off, the Halo music is ridiculously memorable. Like, every video gamer knows that music, and it starts Halo off with a unique feel to it. Almost all first-person shooters, they had that like sort of adolescent, immature metal, like like. No, I'm not. I like Nine Inch Nails. I like Marilyn Manson, Pantera, whatever. But like Doom, very classically ripped off those songs, and that's sort of synonymous with first-person shooters.
Or like Duke Nukem.
Right, like Duke Nukem. Just adolescent, immature,
Goofy.
heavy metal, goofy. So even the second you turn on Halo, you've got
something different.
Exactly, you're experiencing something completely different. Now, I mean, I should preface, I think, that we are almost exclusively console players. I think we both have some computer experience.
In the early 2000s, I was almost exclusively a PC player, but over the years, I've transitioned pretty much to being just an Xbox player.
Right. So I think a lot of statements we're going to make about Halo. Anybody listening, none of you so far, you might say that, they did this in this computer game or they did this in that computer game or whatever. But realistically, I don't have that knowledge. And from a console perspective, Halo really did do all of these things first.
It was pretty groundbreaking.
And I think that's important. So just going back to the music, like that orchestral monk, hymn song, it just says like this is lofty. And deep down, Halo is not lofty, but it likes to present itself so. Would you disagree with that?
I think at this point with Halo 1, I would agree. I would say over time it has expanded into a universe all of its own, just like Star Wars or Star Trek. At this point, so little was known, and it was. I mean, they called it Halo Combat Evolved because it was like, grenades and jumping, and it's sci-fi and tactical, and like they were trying to make it more than just, moving around in one plane of existence and, shooting your Gatling gun. They were making it more than that.
Right, and
that was their focus.
This is a point I was going to bring up later, but we might as well bring it up now since it's sort of there. A lot of people complain about the second half of Halo. And the reason they complain about it is because the first half is so genuinely unique. You're, toting around islands and, canyons and, you're jumping in jeeps and, you're doing all this wonderful new stuff.
And every level is distinct.
Yes.
The terrain is different. The feel is different. The lighting is different. Everything changes from level to level.
And then the flood happens. And the flood are the worst. And the game devolves, combat devolves. You see what's going on here?
I see what you did there.
Yeah, it's a little play on words. It goes back to essentially all those things that Halo was rebelling against. It goes back to a corridor shooter. No more open vistas. No more great vehicles. No more flying around.
Well, there is that. They reuse one of the. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the levels, but they reuse the one where it's very snowy for most of it, and then you come back through and it's filled with the flood. That's a pretty open vista level. However, it is a total reuse of an existing level.
Right,
entirely.
And that's one out of like the last 5 levels of the game.
Yeah.
So you go from being combat evolved to corridor shooter, fighting zombies with a shotgun. And it's boring. It's terrible. Everybody says the library is terrible, and that's exactly why they say it's terrible. Because it went back to those first-person shooter tropes that everybody was tired of, honestly. So I think that's, at least just from a very basic gameplay standpoint, that's what set Halo apart, and that's why it's worth talking about at this point. That's what started everybody from being interested. Going to a co-op perspective, since that's the whole point of this, Halo was the first time I ever remember playing a quote-unquote single-player campaign with somebody else. Can you think of another time that you do that?
No.
Maybe, maybe some sort of side-scrollers, like Zombies Ate My Neighbors or something. I think you can play that with another person.
Or Contra.
Yeah, Contra, but that's a completely different thing.
It is.
this is more like, I mean, this is a poor analogy, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's like playing a Final Fantasy with somebody else. Like, there's a story being told, and you're experiencing it with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first time I really remember that ever happening. And that really makes that interesting. That makes that unique. Did you? I mean, I played it with you.
I played it with some folks in college, but I think mainly it was either them or it was you.
Yeah. We went down to a place. Do you know what it was called?
The Cerebral Playground.
The Cerebral Playground. I did not have an Xbox. Dan was away at college, and he would come back for like summers and stuff.
It was like this place was in Greg's town. It was a gaming cafe, I guess you could call it.
Yeah, and they had like LAN parties there. But to me, the most important thing was they had an Xbox with some giant TV screens.
Yeah.
So Dan and I would go down there, and this is where I played Halo for the first time. And that was fun. It was fun sitting next to the person you're playing with and playing these games. And it's an experience you don't get anymore. Dan and I, we went back and for this, we picked a level in all of the Halos and played through it the way they were intended to be played. So for Halo Combat Evolved, we actually sat down, broke out an Xbox and several controllers because apparently they don't hold up as well as you would hope.
I have a lot of controllers that they work about 75% of the time, which is not enough percent of the time.
And even by the end, my controller was working, but it was constantly drifting left. So a lot of my sniper shots were wasted.
If I only had that big Duke.
If you only had the big Duke, that would have stood the test of time.
But Greg's point was that we were trying to play it as it was intended, and by that we were on one television. It was split screen. I mean, I guess we could have system linked, but that I don't know how. I think a lot of people played the campaign together on one television.
I think so too. The Xbox was known for being able to do those LAN parties and stuff, but realistically, that's not how we did it when I was there or when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that most people didn't do it that way.
Well, because how many people have two TVs sitting around?
Right, and who wanted to lug that 15-pound Xbox and to a friend's house?
Yeah, and then also have another TV.
Right. So I don't think most people
do
it that way.
2 Xboxes and 2 televisions and cables to hook them up, and it's like that's unrealistic for most teenagers.
So now, what was your experience now playing Halo?
Well, we played the Silent Cartographer,
which is the best level. Very interestingly, Dan and I thought we were going to wind up playing 2 levels from every game. Dan was going to pick a level, I was going to pick a level, and then we were going to play each one.
I didn't know that was our plan.
Well, I didn't tell you that.
Okay.
I just told you to pick a level.
Okay.
But interestingly enough, for every single game, we wound up picking the same level that we wanted to play.
Yeah, mostly. Yeah.
Well,
we were sort of on the fence with Reach.
That's true. Reach, we were on the fence, mostly because we couldn't remember what level was what. But also because, realistically,
the beginning of the best level is really difficult.
Yeah.
But that's a Reach discussion.
Yeah, we'll get there. But I just found it interesting that, given complete independence, we still wound up picking essentially the same things.
I will, just as a quick aside, I will say the Silent Cartographer is probably the best level. It's probably not my favorite level.
Really? What's your favorite?
Probably the second one, when you crash land on the Halo ring.
Oh.
Because I know that I've played that level so many times, and I like playing as a sniper, and I know the level like the back of my hand, and I can get everybody, and it's just so much fun.
Realistically, I don't know if I would. I might be the opposite from you. The Silent Cartographer, I think, is my favorite level. I might say that first one is probably the best level. Again, just hearkening back to the points I was making earlier, Halo starts out, again, as sort of a corridor shooter. Like, you're in the ship, there's not many places for you to go, you can throw grenades, but no vehicles,
but your path is very, determined.
Right, there's no real flanking, there's, a flanking option to teach you, hey, you can get behind these guys.
Yeah.
But almost immediately they drop you again in this open world, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
I mean, the game is just gorgeous.
Like, there's vistas in the distance, and you just you look off. You'll walk to the edge of the level and look out, and
Right.
just like, this is incredible. It's beautiful.
I don't know. The game stands up. You know, it doesn't look perfect, obviously.
Especially now. I mean,
Especially now.
it's over 10 years old.
But it looks wonderful. I mean, honestly, I think Dan was almost getting annoyed at me when we were playing because we'd be driving and be like, "Oh my God, look at this rock!" It's just gorgeous, and I think that was important too. You know, like this was a tentpole for the Xbox. This is why you wanted to go buy one, and I think that played a big part of it as well. Let's see what else do I have here.
The vehicles. That's
vehicles.
definitely a co-op thing to talk about.
Yeah,
Especially the Warthog.
especially the Warthog. Yeah, the Warthog it's interesting. You're almost always willing to drive. Why is that? Is it because I'm so terrible?
I might have control issues.
Really?
Yeah, and you don't really. I mean, you control who gets shot with the gun, but when you're driving, you really have control of the vehicle. Also, most of the time, I'm a pretty good driver.
That's true. You are a good driver, much better than me. But I like the gun. I would much rather be the gunner. I don't know. I feel like maybe it's that like hero mentality. I don't know. I feel totally rad on the back of that Warthog with the unlimited ammo.
If it's a Gauss cannon though, like Halo 2, I'll totally.
Oh yeah,
take it.
you're all over
or
that.
Halo 3 or whatever.
Yeah. The
But those co-op vehicles with physics like that. I mean, that was unheard of
in a first-person shooter
before this.
Right. And it's
Also,
just
it kind of turns it. I mean, because when you go into a vehicle, it takes you out of first-person mode into third-person mode, which is also kind of unusual to kind of go back and forth between those experiences.
And that goes back to Halo starting out as a first real-time strategy game. Do you know that? You know that, I'm sure.
I don't know if I know that.
All right. So the history of Halo was that they were making a real-time strategy game with, Space Marines and aliens and all that stuff. And it they had individual champions essentially. And all the people in the Bungie studios, when they were playtesting the game or playing it after work or whatever, they all just wanted to be this guy. They all just wanted to be this one Space Marine and run around the map with him and get in vehicles and run around and stuff. So they were having such a good time with that they decided to stop making a real-time strategy game and just make it focused on that one Marine who turned out to be the Master Chief.
The irony of that is Halo Wars, which is a mediocre RTS.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Which we'll get to.
But I just find that so interesting, and those driving sequences are the biggest testament to what that real-time strategy game would have been. It would have been on an open map, and you would have had, all the Marines would have been your units and stuff like that. So it's just interesting to see that, and that's what I think makes that part so much fun.
Also, I think, I wonder if, this is just totally speculating, and if I'm wrong, this will just sound stupid, but, they had a lot of experience with first-person shooters with Marathon.
Mm-hmm.
So, were they trying to get away from that and kind of do something different?
I think they were.
Do you know, or you're speculating? It's okay.
I am just speculating. I know the history, but it's been a while since I've looked it up.
But it seems like that may have been the case, and then they sort of fell back on what they do best.
Right. Well, they it was supposed to be a Mac exclusive because Bungie was known as Mac producers.
Yep.
And
that's why we had Marathon when I was a kid, because my brother was a Mac user.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. And then Bungie got bought by Microsoft, and then I think they were, they weren't making a game for a computer anymore. They were making a game for this new console. So I feel like that shaped most of what they were doing more than anything else. But I should probably look up the chronology before I say that kind of stuff.
People will forgive us.
I hope so.
It's going back a ways.
That's true. And this is the first episode. We're allowed to make a few flubs.
Errors.
I like flubs. It sounds more innocent.
Okay.
Error sounds like something an accountant would find in my checkbook.
Error sounds like the name of a villager in The Adventures of Link.
It is the name of a villager, and it doesn't sound like it. It is. Let's see.
Trying to turn it back around and make it a video game thing.
Oh, okay. No accountant jokes. That's strictly forbidden.
Math.
My last point, and the multiplayer in this game was also a big deal. In my opinion, it sort of replaced GoldenEye as the go-to party first-person shooter. I mean, do you have a...
No, I would totally agree.
So, I can't think of a single first-person shooter on PlayStation 2.
I didn't have that.
Maybe
the last PlayStation I had was the one.
Maybe at all. Let's see. I guess Time Splitters, that was an alright, like, multiplayer first-person shooter. But the PlayStation's choice to go with 2 controller ports over 4 was a pretty big error in that regard. Because, it's hard to go back to one thing that makes a huge difference. But the Xbox has, especially going into the Xbox 360, has developed this sort of, I don't want to say frat boy following, but realistically it has.
It's like the bro mentality.
Yeah, the bro mentality. With like Call of Duty and Madden and all of those things, a large portion of the gaming community considers those Xbox things. Obviously, you can play Call of Duty and Madden on a PlayStation, but that's not really its thing.
The Xbox is kind of like, not in the sense that a Wii is or the GameCube or anything, but it's kind of like a party system. Like, get your friends together and like play some games.
So I feel like the original Xbox having those 4 controller ports and the system link capabilities
just inherently makes it
exactly
something designed for cooperative play.
It made it the go-to system to have in a dorm.
Yeah.
If you were in college, chances are somebody had an Xbox and that was what you played everything on. People might have had a PlayStation 2 or whatever, but the Xbox was the college dorm thing to have.
Well, and as I mentioned when we were kind of doing the pre-discussion about the show, when I was in college, our campus was all we didn't have any Wi-Fi or anything, but it was all like wired up, so every room had its own, Ethernet port or whatever. But the whole campus was like that. So if you plugged in your Xbox to your internet port in your room, you could system link with anybody on campus. So which made the Halo, interaction pretty interesting because you could be, system linking, playing multiplayer maps, with people in other dorms you don't even know. But it was so strange but you're on the same campus and it's just like odd.
That's cool. Could you voice chat with that?
Well, at this point, I don't think they had. They didn't have Xbox Live yet.
They didn't have Xbox Live,
and that's when the headset came out, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Although you could plug like universal headsets into it. We should look into that. Just not for podcast purposes, but my own personal knowledge. I'm curious if you.
We did not do it.
You did not do that.
No.
Okay. Did you do that often? Did you just hop on your Xbox and play people online?
It tended to be more people like on my floor that we'd be playing with.
Right.
Like, a couple people like within a couple rooms of each other would be playing a map together or something. Every now and then, you'd pick up somebody from somewhere else on the campus, but it was just kind of a unexpected, unique situation.
Interesting.
To have, because unless you're in like an office building or a college dorm or something, how often are you networked in with other people? It's pretty rare.
Yeah, I can't think of a single time that I've ever been able to do that.
I guess now it's irrelevant because of Xbox Live and everything, but at the time that was a pretty odd.
That's
experience.
a big deal, and it's a unique experience.
Yeah.
Office buildings aren't going to have like multiple Xboxes set up just ready to go. Do you have anything else to say about Halo?
One of the other interesting things that I experienced was you could play the multiplayer over your internet connection with the rest of the internet using third-party software. Basically, you hook up your Xbox through your computer, and that hooks up to the internet, and you sort of your game lobby is sort of handled by this third-party software. It didn't work that well. I tended to have like lag and ping issues. But at the time when there was no real online multiplayer for the Xbox, it was a unique experience. It didn't really work that well, but it was better than nothing. And it was it was very weird at the time to play with strangers. Like, it's not something that happened at the time, really.
Yeah,
You mostly played with your friends, and that was about it.
I got an Xbox kind of late. It was probably right before Halo 2, but I did have a PS2, and I actually bought the network adapter and got really into SOCOM 2 or SOCOM 1, and then subsequently SOCOM 2. So much so, like, I was in a clan. Our clan played for money. Like, we played money matches online and stuff. We took trips with the clan. I was really into this clan. But, like, I just remember the sheer joy the first time I actually got my network adapter to work, and I'd, like, logged into a room and found a map and all that stuff. It was so completely unique to me. And I had done it a little bit with Jedi Knight, Jedi Knight on the computer. Like, I played some multiplayer with that. But to sit down on a console, play people over the internet was just an amazing experience. I remember my dad walking in, just like, he couldn't even fathom what was happening. He's like, "Who are you playing with?" I'm like, "These people online." It's like, "What people online?" "I don't know. I just found them." "Found them where?" "Online."
And then your dad probably instantly assumed they're pedophiles, right?
Of course. I mean, I was 16. No, I was younger than that. I was probably 13. So maybe I didn't need protection. But it was just unique, and it's so ho-hum now. Like, you just jump on Xbox Live and whatever you play. But the desire was there, and obviously, like, through third-party software and stuff, people were making it happen, and that's cool. That's cool that people wanted to go out there and do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I guess that covers most of what I have for Halo Combat Evolved. Do you want to talk about Halo Anniversary real quick?
Yeah, but
do you have any?
I have just one sort of point to make that I'm going to make at the end of each one of these. We've played Halo a million times now. Do you know what's happening in this game?
Halo 1, I have a pretty good grasp of.
Okay.
It seems to vary by game. Like, Halo Reach, I have a good overall understanding of, but a very poor specific level understanding of. I've played Halo 1 so much, and that's probably why.
That's what I'm thinking.
If I jumped into Halo 2, I would probably pick things up pretty quickly, because I played that one a lot as well. The rest of them, I find them very sort of like I get the general idea, but very convoluted.
All right.
Level by level.
I'm going to tie this point together in a nice little bow at the end.
Okay.
But just leave it now. I have a pretty good idea about what was happening in Halo 1. Dan also has a very good idea about what was happening in Halo 1.
I think, too, it's because when Halo 1 was out, you didn't have any other games to sort of, like, cloud your understanding of what's going on. And,
that's true, too.
And, like, the timeline and what's happening.
Okay. Anniversary Edition comments?
Yeah, I actually I have a couple of comments here. First of all, I really enjoy the concept here of the Anniversary Edition. Whether it's for Halo or anything else, they're usually not necessary, but they are really nice nod to the super fans of that series.
Yeah, I've bought a few HD collections now
for like Metal Gear and stuff.
I bought
right?
the Metal Gear 1. I bought the Shadow of the Colossus.
What's up with Final Fantasy VII? Is that ever going to happen?
No, that's never happening. I can explain that another time. I'll explain that off.
No, that's fine.
Off mic.
It seems like every time I check into it, it's like a different issue.
It's not happening.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but this is the first one that I've ever seen that doesn't just look slightly better. This is a complete overhaul of the game.
Well, yes and no.
Well, I know it runs on the same infrastructure, but
I would call it a 100% reskinning of the game, because the sort of the bones of it are identical, and that's both a good thing and a bad thing. I like it because it stays true to the original game. All the weird tricks and funny things you could do previously, you can still do. So in that sense, it's very true to the original. On the other hand, I was kind of hoping that they would use a more modern engine to rebuild the levels, and I realized that would be a lot of work. No matter what they do, it's a lot of work. But redoing the whole game from scratch, essentially, that just mirrors the original one, would be an astronomical amount of work, as far as I can guess. It would have been fun to play. It would have been fun to kind of do the same things, but have it look better, and maybe have updated weapons and something like that. Like, But that's almost a different game at that point, and I don't think that's really the route they would have gone. And I think a lot of people would have been upset. I think this is the best thing. 343 did this, right?
Yeah.
I think this is the best thing they could have done to upset the least amount of people and make the most number of people happy.
That's true.
So that's my I think my main point for Halo Anniversary. It didn't need to clone the first one, but I think it's fine that it did. And
yeah.
I think it's very respectable of this. Yeah, is that the right word? Respectable.
Sure.
It's very. It honors the source material quite well. The other thing I really enjoyed in this are the terminals.
Yeah,
because they were like animated scenes, right? Like sort of.
Yeah, they were like
animated.
like motion comics.
Yeah, definitely. And it added extra content. It made the game worth playing at least once. And that was a really fun way to do the terminals.
Right, and they're hard to find.
Yeah.
And that's something I really enjoy about the Halo games is that they almost always reward you for thinking outside the box.
And video game logic. So those are my general points. The only, I guess, my only real negative with Halo Anniversary is that it's not different enough to really warrant a second playthrough. There's no real original multiplayer there. They didn't do anything really interesting with it.
It's just the Reach multiplayer, isn't it?
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's Reach multiplayer with like 3 new maps.
Yeah, and realistically, they should have found a way to use the original multiplayer and make it over Xbox Live.
Oh, you know what? That is actually something that very much disappointed me. Why didn't they just redo the original maps?
I don't know.
They needed to redo the original maps with the Halo and with the Reach engine. They have the Forge. They literally give everybody the tools to do that kind of thing. They should have just done it themselves. For example, what is it? Longship? Is that the name of it?
Yeah, the one where you've got the two ships out in space opposing each other.
It is probably me and Dan's favorite level.
Me and Dan, I think, is correct in this instance.
You get the point.
If your mom listens, she can correct it.
Believe me, she'll correct it. She's probably correcting it now from 50 miles away.
Yeah.
I just can't hear her. So
Gregory,
that's one of our favorite levels of all time, and it is only in Halo 1.
Yeah, it's a. To be fair, it is a weird level, and it's not their best level, but it's so unique.
Yeah,
which is why we like playing it.
It's a great capture the flag map.
It's a great sniper
map.
And it's like you have these very, very long distance, fights, or you're right on top of each other.
Right. And it's a weird map that tells a story. Like these two ships dueling. That's cool.
Yeah.
They needed to remake that. They needed to remake that for Halo Anniversary. It's not like Blood Gulch where there's been 6 different Blood Gulches.
Yeah. It
was only in Halo. So make that and put it in Reach. I think that was a huge omission. All of those maps need to be remade. Sidewinder's only been in the first one. That would have been an awesome map to have in there.
Yeah. They really focused on the campaign, and that was really, for them, that's the game. But that's not all of Halo. That's half of Halo.
That's half of Halo. Final thoughts on Halo before we have to move on. Playing it in co-op on the same screen, I had a lot of trouble seeing what was going on.
It was pretty difficult.
Honestly, I couldn't even really see what was going on most of the time. I would just wait until my reticle turned red, and then I would shoot.
And I don't have the biggest TV in the world. It's a little small at this point.
It's sizable enough.
Yeah,
it's bigger than what we probably were playing on back then.
Yeah, it's an HD TV. It's a modern, flat panel TV, flat screen, whatever.
It's 32 inches, right?
I think so. It's perfectly adequate for the job. I use it when I'm playing regular games, and I don't have any issues. So I don't really know how we did that in the past.
No, me neither. And then on top of that, I felt like I was running through mud the entire game.
Yeah, there's no run.
There's no run, which I'll bring up multiple times. And final point, the Flood effing suck. They're the worst. They ruin everything. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them.
I would concur with all of that. And I think one just general non-co-op point is that I love the last level. Like, I think for a last level, it's difficult and complicated, but exciting, and nerve-wracking.
I don't even remember it. You're in a Jeep, right? You're in a Warthog. I'm going to sound like an idiot.
You're trying to blow up the engines of the Pillar of Autumn that's crashed so that you can destroy the Halo Ring. So you have to like throw all these grenades in, which is infested with the flood. You're in this crashed, derelict, horrible ship, and you have to throw your grenades into like the engine core things, and then you escape, and you have this long driving portion where things are exploding and there's flood everywhere and there's all these obstacles you got to get around, and it's really difficult.
Right.
And then the ship that's going to pick you up gets destroyed, and you got to keep going, and you get at the end, and you got to get out of the car, and you're running, and you're hoping you make it to your longsword to get out of there. The longsword is the ship.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, am I going to make it? Am I going to make it? And you finally get there, and it's like, a sigh of relief. But it's a really close call, and they do a really good job with it. That's my final thought.
Cue the credits.
Okay.